Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis St. Martin with Pompe Warrior Foundation,
I'm Ann St. Martin with the Pompe Warrior Foundation.
and today we are going to be interviewing Beth Zupec-Kania. She is the dietitian for Chalie Foundation, one of, I'm sure there's probably more than you, but maybe not, I don't know. She's been very gracious and said she'd do an interview with us to educate our population on the ketogenic diet. So, hello, Beth. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. And I am the only consultant for the Chalie Foundation. We do have a network of dietitians that the Chalie Foundation has vetted because there are so many requests that the foundation gets every day for different therapies. So I have a group of dietitians that we can refer people to. So anyways, back to, you wanted to know a little bit of history. The foundation was started in 1994, soon after Charlie Abrams recovered from a severe form of epilepsy called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. He started having seizures about a year before that, and he was tried on all of the available anti-seizure medications at that time, but none of them worked. He also had a brain surgery, and that did nothing to reduce the seizures. So he was given a prognosis of progressive retardation and lifelong epilepsy, and his mom and dad could not accept that. His dad, Jim, went to the medical library at UCLA near where they lived and just went through every book he could find to see, you know, what else could there be. And he found a book that talked about the ketogenic diet. And he brought that book to his doctor and said, "What about this?" And his doctor said, "Oh, we don't do that here. I think they do that at Johns Hopkins." So Jim said, "Well, we're going to go there." So he took his family and took them across the country out east to Johns Hopkins, started the diet, and within a few days, the seizure stopped completely.
Amazing. Within a few days.
Within a few days. And then within a couple of weeks, he was off all of his anti-seizure medicines, which is a little unusual. I don't want to give the wrong message because that's not typically how this is done.
Yeah.
But his doctor had been very comfortable. Dr. John Freeman, who passed away a couple of years ago, was very comfortable doing this and stopped all of his anti-seizure medicines, who he said, they're not doing anything for him. He's having all these seizures, and he's not having seizures now that he's on the diet. So it must be the diet that's working. So he stopped his 3 drugs. That's a long time ago. Charlie's 26.
Wow.
Okay. And he went through, he's been seizure free since he's been off the diet. And he's got a degree in early childhood education, and he's a teacher at a preschool in Los Angeles.
Aww.
That's
So,
awesome.
everybody away because not only does he not have epilepsy anymore, I mean, he was able to learn and develop and come around. I mean, he's, it's like a miracle child.
When his original prognosis was mental retardation and who knows what else.
Yes, yes.
Wow, that's amazing. So the Chalie Foundation was started by parents that didn't want to accept the prognosis, basically, right? And they found the ketogenic diet and its therapeutic effects and applied that to epilepsy. And here you guys are doing all sorts of good things all around the world.
Yeah. As well as you two. And you relate to this couple who are like pissed as hell initially. And then after accepting and going through everything, then like, oh my gosh, we could help other people by telling them about this. And as soon as they started the foundation and, passing the word out, word of mouth, the internet was just in the early stages at that time. They got thousands of letters all over the world from people saying this, this was the only answer to our child's problem. It wasn't just children, it was older adults as well. But, they turned something very, very horrible into something very positive. And, to this day, we get stories from people that write in or call in or email and to say, thank God for what you've done. We wouldn't have known about this, or our doctor wouldn't have known about this.
Yeah.
So
I know,
pretty amazing.
I know we've used your website quite a bit through our little ketogenic life here. So, and especially.
Yeah.
She cooks muffins and
Your recipes are wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that.
definitely a great tool. But we can get to that in a minute.
What would you, could you just define your role within the Chalie Foundation for everyone?
Yes. So I was working at a children's hospital here in Wisconsin where I live as a ketogenic dietitian. I actually resurrected a program that was very active in the 1930s or so. And it just, the program went away when more drugs became available to treat seizures. And our neurologist responded to Jim and Nancy Abrams' little video on Dateline about what happened to their son.
Oh, wow.
And he was getting calls for this diet from people that saw that video. And so he came to my office, and I just happened to be in the office at the time. He goes, "Do you or anybody in your department know anything about the ketogenic diet?" And I was like, "Yeah, I remember learning something about that in school, but, couldn't really tell you that very much." And so I went to a staff meeting and said, "Dr. Kovner is looking for someone to do this ketogenic diet." And everybody put their hands behind their back. At the time, it had a very poor reputation. And I thought, "Ooh, it sounds interesting." So I looked into it and I thought, I want this. This is mine. I want something to call my own. I was like jack of trade dietitian at the time, jack of all trades. I was doing, backup work for everybody. And I really wanted something of my own. And it sounded challenging and interesting. And so that's how I got into this. And then that's, long story short is I ended up meeting Jim, who is from this area.
Oh, really?
So Jim Abrams grew up in this area where I am, which is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is his birthplace, and he has family here. So we connected, and that was, I think, 2004. And by 2006, I had convinced him to hire me because I wanted to help him so much. I really liked him so much, and I just knew that I could bring something different to the Chalie Foundation than what he had. And the foundation was and still is quite a small operational organization. And so after about 2 years, I think I convinced him. I did a lot of volunteer work for him initially. Anyways, I convinced him to hire me, and I was able to leave my work at the hospital and become a full-time consultant and do a lot of work for Jim. So that's what I do now. I do a lot of consulting. I have a lot of private patients, all ketogenic diets. So I specialize in ketogenic diet, but I work with, my favorite is to work with rare disorders. For example, Prader-Willi syndrome is a recent rare genetic inherited disorder. I've worked with about 30 families recently using ketogenic therapy, which is a novel therapy for that group of people. It's really not been published in the literature. And by the way, it's very good for them. It's really helpful for them. And many of them have seizures. So it's good for their seizures. It's good cognitively, and it prevents one of the worst characteristics of that disorder, which is an insatiable appetite, which they all looked at some point. So it's been great. But
how would someone get a hold of you if someone that had Pompe wanted to work with you or your group?
Or one of my colleagues in this group. So we have a website. It's ketogenic-specialist.com.
Okay.
And you can either go to that website. We're also, there's several connections on the Chalie Foundation's new website, which will hopefully be posted by the time you air this.
Yep.
But we're in the process of completely revamping the site, and we'll have new recipes in the spring and lots of great new things. So, either way, we'll get you there.
Okay.
Yeah, and we will have a link for your website on our PompeWarriorFoundation.com, as well as some great informational handouts and stuff like that for people.
We can do the same for you if you'd like. We can put your logo on our friends page.
Perfect.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it kind of leads into our other question. I was going to say, have you seen the ketogenic diet help with other health conditions besides epilepsy? Obviously, you just mentioned Prader-Willi syndrome.
Probably the fastest growing area is using it in cancer, in some cancers, not all cancers, but in particular a glioblastoma brain tumor, which is very lethal. These tumors grow and they grow back. If they get removed, they grow back. So there's been several case reports and some studies showing that the diet is safe for this condition, and B, it may help. So I've worked with several people, children and adults, who have this type of cancer, and have worked with them for a long time, which that statement in itself can tell you, that it's helpful, because usually this diagnosis leads to, a short lifespan within, within 2 years. So I've been working with people for years that have this type of cancer and who are doing quite well. Migraine headaches. The statistics in women is 18% of women have migraines.
Wow.
A ketogenic diet, I even like to say we don't even have to do keto. We just do close to keto, like a low carb, fat healthy diet can be significantly helpful for reducing migraine burden. So that's another, I think, growing area, not well published, but it's not hard to convince.
Do you think that, I know you and I talked last time, do you think that has to do with inflammation or lack of inflammation, what the ketogenic diet does?
The ketogenic diet has a huge anti-inflammatory effect. I think that, but also the metabolic regulation, you have lowered insulin requirements, and lower insulin leads to a whole downstream pathway of metabolites, and everything just kind of gets settled, and we don't have this erratic glucose up and down, which insulin follows, and then hormones are involved. So I think it's this whole calming effect, which has to be good for the brain. And there's more and more research on other brain health type of, just dementia and bipolar disorder that seem to be benefiting from this. So that multifactorial, multi ways in which the diet could be helping.
And like synergy, I mean, hits all the processes in the body, really. Well, not essentially, but yeah.
For epilepsy, it's not even been determined what is the mechanism that improves seizures. We don't know. It's been studied to the hilt, but no one really can identify it. And it sounds like it's just so many things happening together that no one can put their finger on the
process.
The one thing.
It's just multifactorial.
Yeah. And so do you think that, I mean, this is all speculation, obviously, but completely changing your system? So even if epilepsy is multifaceted, like you said, but that multifaceted system is running on a glucose system, and if you're completely you don't completely, but you downregulate that system a lot and then upregulate a totally different system, could that be why you see the ketogenic diet work so well?
Yeah, that's a very good layman's explanation of what's going on, and I think that's exactly what the scientists are pointing to. It's just a completely different way of using energy for the brain, and the brain does very well with this type of energy.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I know that we talked, and you follow a ketogenic diet or a variation of, right? The mental clarity when you're doing this that's my favorite part about being ketogenic, really. And it's amazing. It really is.
Right. I agree. Yeah, and people that I've convinced or I've worked with, patients and friends who finally get through that first couple of weeks of jitters and you feeling kind of crummy and why am I doing this, and finally get to that and get to the point where like, oh my gosh, I don't need to take a 10-minute nap in the middle of the day. I can get through the day. That's one of the things. You don't have that mid-afternoon or mid-evening, whatever, slump of energy where you just want to shut your eyes for a little bit. You have energy and then you wake up bright and early, so it's not hard to convince people to give this a try. Because of those fantastic benefits.
Yeah, and there's an incredible amount of benefits other than the Epilepsy Foundation or the epilepsy side of things, which is why we came to you as people with somebody
with a rare, who are seeing the benefits of the ketogenic diet in the treatment of our son. So, speaking of that, could you describe some of the tools that are available on your website for new users? I know I personally have used the keto diet calculator, and so I think that's great for especially for younger infants when you're making your own food and getting your macros correct and your ratio correct.
Yeah. Could you explain that to the people that are going to be coming to your website?
So Keto Diet Calculator, it's a web-based program, and it's one of the main services that the Chalie Foundation provides for free, even though they put lots of money into it because I send them the upgrade bills. I wrote the program. I maintain it with a programmer named David Chase, and we are always adding to it, modifying things. Just maintaining the database is a part-time job for me. The foods, contact manufacturers, and all that. So there's a lot in there. It's also what a lot of people I didn't realize weren't aware of. It can be used on smartphones. You just bring up the address because I've been told like I can't find it in the app store, and I'm okay. Well, we don't have an app icon in the app store, but you just bring it up on your phone. And then once you put your username and password in it, you can always access it. So here's the thing for any families that are listening to this, you have to go through a nutritionist to get access. It's free, but you have to go through a nutritionist. And the reason is that the Chalie Foundation felt responsible. If they were making this available, they wanted to make it available and be responsible because there are adverse effects to the ketogenic diet. It really should be done under medical supervision, right, with somebody that knows what they're doing. So we have a nutritionist set up a diet calculation for you or your child, and then create a username and password so that you can access it. And then the nutritionist has, a list usually of 20 or 30 people that they're following at the same time. So they're all in the same program, and you can't see that. You just see what your loved one's diet is. But one of the more recent upgrades that we did is we put in a sort option in the meals. So if you have a whole list of Leo's meals, you can sort them alphabetically. Like if some parents like to put breakfast and call it like eggs and avocado, and they'll call the next meal breakfast and flaxseed porridge. So if you sort alphabetically, all the breakfasts will come together, and you've got them all together. So that's one little thing, but for being organized, a lot of people like that, having that to do that.
Definitely. I mean, it's coming from two people that have used it, and we get access through Susan, our dietitian at the Mayo Clinic. It's a phenomenal tool. I mean, it really is. It expands what you can give to your child, or you can eat as an adult if you have this disease or whatever. But so I would highly recommend anyone out there that's listening to this to talk to a dietitian, get on the Chalie Foundation, and get access to this keto calculator, because it will open your world up. It will. It's a great tool. It's a fantastic tool. So thank you for putting in the effort, Beth.
Yes.
Welcome. It's great to hear feedback, because sometimes I feel like, is anybody using this? It takes me a long time to keep it going.
I was so excited when Susan showed it to us. Honestly, we sat and played around it for. I mean, it opens up everything you can eat. I mean, as long as you just punch in your ratios and you see, and then your calculator spits out, says, yes, this is ketogenic. No, that's not. You need to change this. It's perfect. It's great.
Yeah.
So
it allows a lot of flexibility, which, years ago when I first started doing this, and I was doing everything by hand, the poor families that I worked with, it was such a limited diet. So that's one of the main things, that it allows a lot of flexibility. And then also the flexibility of, I have a recipe for chicken and broccoli, but I didn't realize we don't have any broccoli. Let me put in or copy this meal, which is, you make a copy of that meal by just pressing the word copy. So now you have a carbon copy of that same meal, and you can delete the broccoli and put asparagus or whatever you have in. And that can just take seconds. So it's flexible. A lot of people just use it in their kitchen, on their iPad or their phone, or take their phone to the grocery store, of course, and look up, what are we going to have this week? And so it can be very helpful in that sense as well.
Yeah, that's fun. I know one of the other tools that I've seen on your website that I know will interest people in our community, because there are people in our community they're all over the country, they're all over the world. They can find ketogenic hospitals or institutions on your website around the world, right? That's another, I thought, very useful tool especially for people with a rare disease, right? We're not concentrated in one area. We're everywhere. So,
right. Yeah. That's a directory that we started building probably 10 years ago, and I maintain that as well. And whenever I go to a conference, I show that page and say, for you professionals out there, if you're not on this, if you're not in the directory and you want to be, let me know. And if you're on here and you've got a different address or something, let me know. So we try to stay on top of that directory. And certainly there are some places that are doing the diet that aren't on there. So it's not all inclusive.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good list, though. I mean, you have almost every state. It's over 200 institutions. I mean, it's very good, very comprehensive, I would say.
And then I guess we know you do work closely with these medical institutions from around the world. And how would someone's doctor contact you if they wanted to help start in the ketogenic diet?
Yeah, so I would say the easiest way to have somebody contact me in terms of keeping it in their head, how they can do it, is just go to the Chalie Foundation and hit contact us and say, we would like XYZ. Can Beth contact us? Or we're interested in maybe doing a seminar or finding out this and that. So the contact us actually goes to Mr. Abrams. So he reads them every day. And then if there's some for me, he'll email them to me. If there's some for Dawn is a mom of a little girl that has epilepsy, and she does a lot of our recipes for us. She's out in Washington, D.C., so she handles a lot of the recipe questions. And then Jim I think Jim handles actually the bulk of questions because he's pretty knowledgeable now after 26 years of doing the Chalie Foundation.
Beth, I have one final question for you. Does this diet make sense for someone with Pompe, someone that wants to control the production of glycogen?
It makes so much sense. You cannot ignore how much sense this makes. Really, the science is quite simple, and I would imagine you have this described on your website, but it is without a doubt. So not only effective in ameliorating the problem with the condition, the disease or the disorder, whatever you want to call it, but again, there's all kinds of ramifications with glycogen storage if it's not going well. And if you can mitigate that by providing such a low carbohydrate intake, carbohydrate breaks down into glucose, and glucose stores as glycogen. So if you're taking care of that pathway, other things turn around beautifully, and that's what we see. We see kids kind of come alive, brighten up. Oh, there goes my fax machine. We'll ignore that. And so I think it's not a question of does it make sense. It's a question of how soon can we get started on this.
Right.
You do want to make sure you're working with a center that someone is going to supervise it, because things can go wrong, and I have to be very upfront about that. I've managed a lot of adverse effects of the ketogenic diet, and you may have seen some with your son. But we know what those effects are, and we can prevent them. And that's what I try to highlight in all of my trainings to professionals, is that we know there can be constipation and we know there can be acidosis. These are the two more common adverse effects. So let's teach the parents about them and prevent them by taking these steps. And once you understand that and get on a good routine and monitor that, then those aren't issues.
Yeah. And they are very controllable, like you said. I mean, once you learn a little, it's not even that much. You just have to learn a little bit, and then you're good. But yeah, we'll be working with the Mayo Clinic on starting this study, so I have faith in them.
Okay. So in summary, I just want to say, I think ketogenic diet is a really great option for any glycogen storage disease. And keep in mind that there are variations in the diet. It's not just one diet. It can be super strict and rigid, like the classic ketogenic diet, and it can be modulated and very individualized. So I like to emphasize that to professionals, but mostly to families, that it needs to be individualized, so that you're sort of thriving and doing well, and you can modulate ketosis even by adjusting the diet, the ratio, the types of fats. And it definitely needs to be done under medical supervision, which I think is a given. Please consider this for your loved one, and hope we cross paths someday, guys.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hold a seminar at some point for people in our community, and I'd love to have you involved, obviously. But thank you for your time today, Beth, and thank you for all the work you've put in at the Chalie Foundation. You have great resources, and obviously you are a big part of those resources. So thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, and best wishes with Leo.
Thank you very much. Keep up.